The town of Red Hollow sat in a narrow valley surrounded by towering mountains that seemed to touch the clouds. Pine forests stretched for miles in every direction, and the people who lived there believed they understood everything worth knowing. They knew who owned each ranch, who was behind on taxes, who was courting whom, and who could be trusted. Or at least they thought they did. In a place that small, stories became facts simply because enough people repeated them. And no story was repeated more often than the one about Mara Quinn. Every child in Red Hollow knew her name. Parents used it as a warning. Stay away from the forest after dark, or you'll run into Mara. Old men sitting outside the general store would shake their heads whenever she appeared. There goes the wild woman. She'll never settle down. Something's wrong with that one. Over the years, the stories had become larger than the woman herself. Some claimed she had been raised by wolves. Others insisted she had escaped from an asylum. A few swore she practiced witchcraft in hidden caves high above the valley. The truth was far less dramatic. But nobody cared about truth when rumors were more entertaining. Mara rarely defended herself. She simply continued living exactly as she pleased. That only made people talk more. At 28 years old, she looked as though she belonged to the mountains more than to civilization. Her dark hair was usually tied back carelessly. Her boots were worn from endless miles of hiking. Her hands carried the rough marks of hard work. She walked with confidence. Spoke directly. Never lowered her eyes. Many people found that intimidating. Especially the men. Years earlier, several young ranchers had attempted to court her. The first one brought flowers. Mara accepted them politely before explaining she preferred edible plants. The second arrived with expensive jewelry. She suggested he sell it and donate the money to struggling farmers. The third confidently informed her that a good husband could teach her how to behave like a proper lady. According to witnesses, Mara laughed so hard she nearly fell off her horse. After that, the men stopped trying. And the stories began. She's impossible. She's wild. She's untameable. The nickname followed her everywhere. Even though nobody truly knew her. One summer afternoon, Red Hollow gathered for its annual harvest festival. Families filled the town square. Musicians played cheerful songs while children chased one another between vendor stalls. Mara arrived shortly before sunset. Conversation immediately shifted. People pretended not to stare. But they always stared. Mara ignored them. She purchased supplies, exchanged brief greetings with a few merchants, and prepared to leave. Then trouble started. A frightened horse suddenly broke free from its tether. The animal bolted through the crowded square. Children screamed. Adults jumped aside. The horse crashed through tables and raced directly toward a group of small children frozen in fear. Everything happened within seconds. Before anyone else could react, Mara sprinted forward. She moved with startling speed. Leaping over a fallen bench, she intercepted the horse and grabbed its bridle. The animal reared violently. Most people would have been thrown immediately. Mara held on. The horse kicked and bucked. Dust filled the air. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Slowly, impossibly, the animal calmed. Within moments it stood quietly beside her. A little girl burst into tears and hugged her mother. The danger had passed. Instead of celebrating Mara's bravery, several townspeople simply muttered that she was lucky. Others insisted she had some strange connection with animals. As usual, nobody gave her proper credit. Mara handed the horse back to its owner and walked away without complaint. She had long ago stopped expecting fairness from Red Hollow. The mountains, at least, never pretended to be something they weren't. High above town, where the forests grew thick and the air smelled of pine and snow, Mara felt at peace. The wilderness asked nothing from her. It didn't judge her appearance. It didn't question her choices. It didn't try to change her. Many evenings she would sit on rocky cliffs watching the sunset paint the valley below in shades of gold and orange. From that distance, Red Hollow looked beautiful. Small. Quiet. Almost kind. But distance had a way of hiding unpleasant truths. One morning, shortly before winter arrived, Mara descended into town carrying several bundles of herbs. An elderly woman named Ruth Dawson had fallen ill, and Mara knew exactly which plants might help. She delivered them personally. Ruth thanked her warmly. Unfortunately, not everyone shared that gratitude. As Mara exited the house, she overheard several women gossiping nearby. They didn't realize she could hear them. "I don't trust her." "Neither do I. Normal people don't live alone in the mountains. Mark my words, she's dangerous." Mara paused. For a brief moment pain flickered across her face. Not anger. Not surprise. Just disappointment. Then she continued walking. Because what else was there to do? You couldn't force people to see you clearly if they preferred their illusions. That evening, a newcomer arrived in Red Hollow. His name was Elias Boone. Unlike most arrivals, he wasn't searching for wealth or opportunity. He was searching for peace. Tall, broad-shouldered, and quiet, Elias spoke little about his past. The few details people learned came from observation. He worked harder than anyone. Preferred solitude. Avoided unnecessary conversation. And possessed a sadness that never entirely left his eyes. Within months, he purchased land high in the mountains and built a cabin with his own hands. The project became local legend. Most men would have needed a crew. Elias needed only determination. Day after day he hauled timber, cut stone, and shaped the structure himself. By the first snowfall, the cabin stood complete. Strong. Simple. Beautiful. The townspeople respected him almost immediately. Perhaps because he resembled the kind of hard-working frontiersman they admired. Or perhaps because he never gave them reasons to gossip. Unlike Mara. For nearly 2 years, their paths crossed only occasionally. A brief greeting on a trail. A nod from horseback. Nothing more. Yet Elias noticed things others ignored. He noticed injured animals often recovered after encounters with Mara. He noticed struggling families mysteriously receiving bundles of food during harsh seasons. He noticed that despite endless criticism, she continued helping people. Most importantly, he noticed she never asked for recognition. One particularly brutal winter changed everything. Snow arrived earlier than usual. Storms battered the mountains relentlessly. Temperatures plunged. Travel became dangerous. Even experienced hunters stayed close to home. Late one afternoon, Elias was returning from checking trap lines when he spotted something unusual near a frozen ravine. A figure partially buried beneath drifting snow. His pulse quickened. Abandoning his supplies, he hurried forward. The moment he reached the figure, he recognized her. Mara. She was unconscious. Her skin was pale from cold exposure. A nasty cut marked her forehead. Fresh snow continued piling around her. Another hour and she likely would have died. Elias didn't hesitate. Carefully lifting her onto his horse, he wrapped her in blankets and began the difficult journey back to his cabin. The storm intensified as darkness fell. Wind screamed through the trees. Snow reduced visibility to almost nothing. Several times the horse nearly lost footing. Still Elias pressed onward. By the time they finally reached the cabin, both man and animal were exhausted. Inside, he placed Mara beside the fireplace and worked through the night to keep her warm. Hours passed. Then morning arrived. And far below in Red Hollow, rumors had already begun spreading. Someone had seen Elias carrying Mara into the mountains. Someone else claimed they were living together. Others predicted disaster. The gossip exploded like wildfire. He has no idea what he's getting into. That woman will ruin him. Give it a few days. She's untamable. As laughter filled the town saloon, nobody realized that high above them, in a quiet cabin surrounded by endless snow, the story they thought they understood was only just beginning. The avalanche thundered down the mountainside like a living monster. Its roar swallowed every other sound. Trees shattered like matchsticks. Massive rocks tumbled through the snow. Entire sections of forest disappeared beneath a wall of white destruction racing toward Red Hollow. Panic spread through town faster than the avalanche itself. Church bells rang frantically. People ran into the streets. Mothers gathered children. Men shouted conflicting orders. Animals broke free from pens and stampeded through muddy roads. No one knew what to do. No one except Mara Quinn. The moment she heard the mountains roar, she understood exactly what was happening. Years spent living among the peaks had taught her lessons no book ever could. She knew the sounds of shifting snow. She knew the signs of danger. Most importantly, she knew the terrain better than anyone alive. As terrified townspeople rushed away from the mountain, Mara ran toward it. Elias followed immediately. Neither needed to speak. One glance was enough. The storm whipped snow into their faces as they climbed higher. Behind them, Red Hollow looked small and fragile. Ahead of them, death raced down the slopes. The northern pass was the key. Mara knew that if the avalanche struck the pass directly, the snow would funnel straight into town. Hundreds could die. Maybe more. The only chance was an abandoned diversion trench built decades earlier by miners. Most residents had forgotten it existed. The mountain had nearly reclaimed it. But Mara remembered. She remembered everything. When they reached the pass, she pointed toward a ridge. The trench is there. Elias nodded. Without wasting a second, they began digging through snow and frozen earth. The work was brutal. Every breath burned their lungs. Every swing of the shovel felt heavier than the last. The avalanche grew louder. Closer. The mountain trembled beneath their feet. Several times Elias glanced toward the approaching wall of destruction. It seemed impossible. No two people should have been able to stop something that powerful. Yet Mara never slowed. Her determination became contagious. If she still believed they had a chance, then so did he. Minutes passed. The trench slowly emerged beneath layers of ice and debris. Not enough. Still not enough. The avalanche was almost upon them. Then Mara spotted the final obstacle. A massive support beam from the old mining days blocked the channel completely. If they couldn't move it, everything they had done would be useless. Together they pushed. Nothing happened. Again. The beam groaned but held firm. Snow exploded from the mountainside above. The avalanche was nearly there. For the first time, fear crossed Elias's face. Not fear for himself. Fear that they were about to fail. Mara looked toward the valley. Through the storm she could barely see Red Hollow. The same town that mocked her. The same town that called her dangerous. The same town that never bothered learning who she truly was. Yet she couldn't bring herself to hate them. Because despite everything, it was still her home. With a fierce cry, she climbed onto the beam. Ignoring pain and exhaustion, she threw her entire weight against it. The wood cracked. Again. A louder crack. One final shove. The support collapsed. The trench opened. Seconds later the avalanche struck. The world vanished into chaos. Snow crashed into the pass with unimaginable force. The ground shook violently. Trees snapped apart. Wind screamed. For several terrifying moments, neither Mara nor Elias could see anything. Then it happened. The trench.